There is a specific kind of observation that many people make, but rarely talk about openly. They notice that within the Jewish community, there is a recurring pattern of financial resilience, a focus on generational stability, and a deep-seated drive for excellence. People often look at this and create stories about secrets or hidden advantages. But if you look deeper, if you study the psychological and cultural framework behind this, you realize it isn't a conspiracy. It is a philosophy. It is a mindset that was forged not by choice, but by necessity over thousands of years. Today, we are going to decode the psychology behind Jewish wealth, not as a financial guide, but as a study of mindset, community, and the survival of knowledge. The world often misunderstands this phenomenon as just being good with money. That is a superficial view. The truth is that for the Jewish people, wealth was historically not just a luxury. It was a survival mechanism in a world that frequently stripped them of land, citizenship, and security. When you are denied the right to own land or participate in certain trades, your only portable asset becomes your mind. This forced a massive cultural shift. The ultimate investment wasn't in property, but in human capital, education, literacy, and the ability to solve complex problems. What people call wealth today is the byproduct of a culture that prioritized the one thing that could never be confiscated: knowledge. In psychology and sociology, we call this the growth mindset applied to community. From a young age, many in this culture are introduced to the concept of tzedakah, charity, not as an optional act, but as a fundamental responsibility. This creates a fascinating psychological loop. When you are taught that your wealth is meant to be shared and that you are a steward of your success, it changes how you take risks. It reduces the paralyzing fear of failure because your success is tied to the strength of your community. You aren't just building for yourself, you are building to sustain the next generation. That is a massive psychological buffer against the short-term, reckless decision-making that often ruins other fortunes. Think of the difference between an individual investor and an investor who manages a family trust. The individual investor panics when the market drops. They sell out of fear. But the trustee? They think in 50-year cycles. This is the generational lens. It is the ability to look at a 4 p.m. business crisis and not see a catastrophe, but a data point in a much larger, longer story. While the world chases quick exits, this mindset is playing a game that is meant to last beyond their own lifetime. It is the difference between living for the now and living as an architect of the future. But this intense focus on excellence and preservation comes with a burden. It can create an immense pressure to succeed, a heavy, silent weight on the shoulders of the younger generation. The expectation to honor the sacrifice of ancestors by achieving high levels of success can sometimes lead to an identity crisis. Am I succeeding because I want to, or because I am carrying the legacy of those who couldn't? The struggle here isn't about not having money. It's about the constant demand to remain vigilant, educated, and useful. 6. The practical principles, the takeaway. So, what can we learn from this, regardless of our own background? There are 3 core principles that anyone can adopt. First, invest in portable assets. In an unpredictable world, your skills, your network, and your education are the only assets that are truly yours. Second, the steward mentality. Stop viewing money as a scorecard for your ego and start viewing it as a tool for impact. When you take the ego out of wealth, you make better, clearer decisions. Third, generational thinking. Start making decisions not based on what makes you comfortable today, but based on what sets the table for who you will be in 20 years. 7. The closing, poetic empowerment. The psychology of Jewish wealth is not about magic. It is about a relentless commitment to adaptability and the belief that while the world may change, the power of a disciplined, educated mind is the only true constant. You do not need to be born into a specific tradition to adopt the generational lens. You only need to stop seeing your life as a series of short-term wins and start seeing it as a long-term project. You are not just earning a living. You are building an inheritance. If this video gave you a new way to look at your own financial journey, please leave a comment on which principle resonates with you the most. And remember, you have more power to build your own legacy than you think. Subscribe for more deep dives into the psychology of human success. Goodbye. and I'll see you next time.